quite seriously, this man, who is now being hailed as a moderate, Rouhani, is a wicked man. In a speech on the 21st of November in this House with the various speakers to look at the various jobs that this man Rouhani has had under the regime. He has served his masters well, and that's why I call him a butcher, because he has stood silent, and since his appointment as the Premier, he's presided over 300 people being hung. As I see it, we've got to redouble our efforts to expose the evilness of this man and keep thinking not just of our wonderful friends on hunger strike, but those hundreds of thousands of people who are suffering repression in Iran itself.
Ladies and gentlemen, this agreement was brokered on the back of crippling international sanctions and a fear that the regime might see a return to the popular protests that caused them so much difficulty during 2009. And of course, there's Ashraf and liberty. The way Western powers respond to these events has been watched closely in Tehran. If we look weak and indifferent, they will interpret that as a green light for more brutality.
That the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary of this country, and indeed President Obama, and indeed Senator Kerry, continues their efforts to release the 7 hostages as soon as possible. We are not prepared to allow them to remain in captivity. We must make clear to Iran that there will be serious consequences if they don't comply with this. Simple freedom for these people.
Many others of our friends are on hunger strike in many, many countries. Promises were made, again, by various people in authority. Just words. We have to continue to intervene in every conceivable way that we can. Here I am spreading the message. Knowledge cascades. In the end, knowledge is power. We all, in our different ways, can do things. You all, in one way or another, do. Despair cannot be on our agenda. This is too important, and it reverberates beyond the residence. It has to do with world peace.
Let me tell you with certainty. I'm not speculating. I'm telling you exactly what happened. There is no way for any attackers, assailants, to reach Camp Ashraf, to enter Camp Ashraf, kill 52 people, explode buildings and vehicles, and basically wage war within the camp without the active participation of the Iraqi forces. We need these 7 abducted people to be freed, so the diplomatic missions need to also raise their voice with al-Maliki and tell him to free these people. And I'm sure the United Nations, if they wanted to do a positive action, they would have done it by now.
The current Iranian regime, from Khomeini to Khamenei and from Khatami to Rouhani, has had as a policy for survival the total suppression of opposition. The truth is, Iran came to the table in a weak position, desperately needing sanctions relief. I believe, however, that we will see very shortly that it's the same old Iran, dealing in the same old way, with no care for human rights, a medieval theocracy that acts with all the terror of the Inquisition. And that's what we are dealing with. David Cameron and William Hague should now be publicly demanding the release of the Campaign 7 hostages. If they have any decency about foreign policy, they should be doing that.
The Iranian regime and Iraqi authorities should be under no illusions they will not be able to crush the willpower of the Iranian opposition, despite lies and cover-ups by Maliki and his futile attempts to deny that his government is not holding 7 Ashraf hostages. Our government must make him accountable and hold him responsible for the immediate release of the Ashraf hostages and for their safety and security.
Make its voice heard. We need action as well. And I would have said that it was a mistake to lift sanctions, that the sanctions perhaps even should be intensified with a direct focus on the issues that are being discussed today. Of course, there are major issues of international law here and clear violations of international law by both the Iranian regime and by the Iraqi regime. I shall just say one thing, that I feel great humility in the presence of people who have been on hunger strike for so long, and it's very easy for lawyers and indeed for politicians to pontificate and talk, but when it comes to the sort of action that you are taking, that requires real courage, real dedication, and I can only hope that it will produce success that we all wish for. Thank you very much.